Welcome guys to our first ever build guide / overview from NCPC. Now this isn't our regular kind of video. We usually do gaming videos, but we're building this PC for a client, so we decided to film it for you. So this is going to be our top-end AMD APU build for Kavari. So I'm going to hand it off to Connor to explain the case to you.
Alright, for the case we chose, we got the NZXT H230 here. It comes with two 120mm fans stock, and it has 7 PCI Express slots in the back. You also can put another fan on the bottom of the case, but no more on the top. You also can put one more in the front. The front and bottom also have the dust collectors. Right now in this system, we removed one of the drive cages, we pulled the fan up, we put in our storage, our DVD drive, and our power supply, which we will tell you a little bit more later about. And for this case also, they added some sound dampening foam on both side panels and on the removable front panel, which was really good considering this case is only $60. It is a very good case for the price. On to the workhorse of our system.
Okay, so the workhorse of this system is the AMD A10 7850K APU. So an APU is basically a CPU and graphics cores on the same chip. So it's going to provide way better dedicated graphics than something that would be on your motherboard. So something that we didn't go with this system, but you can definitely do, is go with dedicated graphics. Now the special thing about these is the graphics cores on these can go in crossfire with the dedicated graphics. So the ones that it works with is the R7 240 and 250 from AMD. So that's what we're using for our CPU / GPU in this build. Now we're going to go on to what's keeping this thing cool when we're overclocking it, is the Cooler Master Hyper T4. So this is a cousin to the Hyper 212 Evo, which is one of the most popular air coolers on the market. So we got this to keep it cool and quiet while we're overclocking, and it's for a great price. So now I'm going to Connor to explain the motherboard to you.
Alright, for the motherboard, we went a little overkill. We got the Gigabyte G1 Sniper A88X. It is a FM2 Plus socket motherboard, and it is right here on the table in front of us. It is black and lime green, which I think looks really cool. Not that that matters much. It has 2 PCI Express slots here, 4 RAM slots, support for 7.1 HD audio. You got your Gigabit Ethernet here, 2 USB in the back, as well as support for 2 in the front. You have 4 USB 2 in the back, and better audio codec, and it supports our aftermarket CPU cooler here, as well as our extremely fast RAM, which Noah will tell you about later.
Okay, now onto the storage for this system. We got the ADATA SP900 128GB SSD. It's actually currently in our system right now, but we went with an SSD because our client does not need the massive slow storage of a hard drive, so we went with the smaller fast storage of an SSD. So now onto the power supply.
Alright, for the power supply we chose the Corsair CX430M, M meaning modular, and 430 being it has 430 watts, which is plenty for this system. It has a 80+ bronze certification for efficiency, which it rather runs at 85% efficiency. And it has 1 PCI Express 6-pin or 8-pin connector, and also 1 floppy connector, which I found interesting. It's also a good note because that tells you that the power supply has been around for a while and is older, but since they have not changed anything or altered it, that means it is very reliable and also is expected to be a nice quality power supply.
Alright, now onto the RAM for the system. We chose the Kingston HyperX Beast RAM, which is, this is a 8GB dual channel kit, and it's running in 2400 megahertz. We went with such fast RAM because the graphics cores on that APU don't have their own dedicated memory, so it also uses the RAM, and it can really benefit from really fast RAM. So that's why we went with this, and that's it. And some extra little parts that we went with is a DVD drive. It's in the case
from LG.
Just a $20 one, just to make it work. and Windows 7 Home Premium 64-bit, and Office Home Student 2013. So without further ado, we're going to move on to the build. So first is to put on your CPU.
Yeah.
What you want to do is first open your retentioner and the socket, and then find on your CPU the little arrow right here. Now this corresponds with an arrow on the CPU socket in the motherboard, and you want to line up those arrows, and that's how the order goes on the CPU. So I'm going to pick up the CPU very delicately, and I'm just going to set it on the pins right here. As I set it in, it just kind of falls into place once you get it there, and you very gently lower the retention arm. So hold this, and boom, it's there. CPU is installed.
Alright, for the second step here, we will be installing RAM, which would be these things. So for the first off, you have to open the slots that you would like to use. For most kits which are dual channel, you can either look on the motherboard right here, or you can look in your motherboard manual to find out which slots work in dual channel. For our motherboard, the lime green slots and the black slots work in dual channel, but due to our CPU cooler and how tall this RAM is, so we have a heat shroud that goes up about a half an inch, we cannot fit it in dual channel, but it's not really going to affect this RAM because this RAM is very fast and we're not going to be using it for gaming purposes in the first place. So we've decided just to use it in the farthest away two slots, which would be these two on either side, so it does not actually hit the CPU cooler. And so there's a notch in the RAM here, and there's also a notch in the socket about right there that's offset, so you really can't put this in the wrong way unless you're not paying attention. So there's a little slot on either side that you just slide it in to about there. The clips will be open. You press one side in, you'll hear a click, and you also press the other side in, and then you'll see if both of these are up that you have it installed it completely. Then you take your second DIMM is what they are called, and you line it up once again, press in one side, press in the other. You also can press in both at once if you want. Make sure these are closed, and it's as simple as that.
Our next step is applying thermal compound. We're using this generic like Cooler Master stuff, but it should come with your CPU cooler, so you shouldn't have to worry about that. How we're going to apply it is I have a piece of tape on my finger here, and Connor's going to apply some on there, and I'm going to spread it around with my finger. This is the best method because tape is much cleaner than your hand, than your finger, so we can just spread it around. So here we go. He's going to put a little bit on, and then I'm going to take the stuff and I'm going to spread it right around like that.
You can also put more on if necessary, if it seems like you need to. Right to the sides too. Just cover the whole surface. Contrary to popular belief, putting a small dab in the center and then just using the heatsink to spread it out is not actually the best method.
A little bit more.
If it's a little sticky, you can switch a piece of tape. Yeah.
And I think we're going to switch a piece of tape
here. Get a new piece of tape here. If you just put a dot in the middle and then you use your heatsink to actually spread it out, it usually does not get to all the corners, which is why this method is actually better.
And there we go. Thermal compound is applied. So after applying the thermal compound, we're going to put on the heatsink and cooler. So
alright, so the way this fan is oriented is there's two clips for AMD, which you put in the middle here on this side, and basically they hook into these two plastic parts on the motherboard. And so all you have to do is, let me just kind of situate myself here. There's two loops
plastic off, Connor.
There's loops on either end, and there's also a piece of plastic on the bottom, which keeps it clean, which you remove then. So we're gonna get that first loop. We're gonna put it around that piece of plastic. We're gonna set the CPU cooler on as such, and then we're going to wrap the second loop on here by putting it in the loose position. You may have to press down, and then for this, all you have to do is you flip this lever around here and it tightens it down. You may have to hold the motherboard a little bit from here. And there you go. You can now pick up the whole motherboard by this, and you should have no trouble mounting it or anything. Alright guys, now onto the motherboard. So for putting the motherboard into your case, each motherboard is different, and each case has a different number of holes here for potential slots for your motherboard. The easiest way to tell is you take your motherboard, and in this case you grab it by the giant heatsink. You try not to hit anything because that's always good. And you just line it up with the holes and see where your motherboard would be sitting. And I have already done this, and so now I have put in some of the motherboard standoffs. I have one more here, which Noah is going to tell you about.
So you want to make sure you put the standoffs in before you try to put the motherboard in, because basically what the standoffs do is it brings your motherboard off the metal of the inside of your case and makes it so you don't short out your motherboard when you're actually using it. So your motherboard has standoff openings that divert the electricity so it doesn't short out your motherboard by touching the rest of the metal of the case. So these are very important. So like we have standoffs here, 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 and here. So that's what you need to do and make sure you have. And then make sure you have the right screws. In this case, we only have 5 of them, but that will work just fine. And Connor will explain what he's doing here.
Alright, so you can hand tighten all of these motherboard standoffs to a certain point, in which if they're a nice motherboard brand, they'll give you a adapter for a Phillips screwdriver to the right socket size that you'll need here. And so you can use this then to screw in the standoffs even farther. Magnetic screwdrivers are always a plus. They help you a ton. And you don't want them to be extremely tight, you just want them tight enough that they won't spin out. Alright, so now when you're done with that, you are going to take your motherboard and you take the I/O shield, which was in your motherboard box, and you put it in the proper spot in the back of the case here. So then you take your motherboard here and you are going to set it down lightly, and you are going to line up all the I/O ports correctly, as well as the motherboard with the motherboard standoffs. And then to know that you have your motherboard seated properly, you just check through all the motherboard standoff locations and see if you can actually see threads located in there. And now you will have to put in 1 screw at least, because of the fact that the I/O shield is kind of pushing the motherboard away from where it should be to one side, so you kind of have to hold the motherboard in place while you
Which
grab
I will do for him.
Yes. Noah can hold the motherboard in place, and I will just take 1 screw here. Pick any of them I want. I'm going to pick one in the middle here, just because it's easy access. And you're just going to, you might need to push it a little farther, Noah. Sideways. Do we have, oh, we need to slide the motherboard a little bit up and push a little more, Noah. Thank you. You gotta fiddle with it a little bit to get everything lined up center. And then you're gonna screw it in. Don't screw it in tight, just screw it in loosely so you can get you can adjust it to get all the other screws in, but that'll just hold it in place for all the other screws, which Noah can now put in right now. Now if you have the situation where we're in with limited screws, we are going to put as many, seeing as we don't have a graphics card, we're gonna put 2 on the top there, and we're going to fill up the 3 middle slots that we have. And that is it. You now have installed your motherboard correctly, and it is in that case.
Okay, now that we have everything in the case and the motherboard and everything in the case, it's time for wiring. Okay guys, the cable management and cable routing all done. This is our final look at it.
It's not the cleanest thing in the world, we will admit that.
Yeah, honestly, we know that's not good. We call ourselves amateurs, okay? We did our best.
As you can see here, it is not really going to be stopping the airflow that bad. So
yeah, we still have decent airflow, and we're overall happy with this build. So after this, we're going to do small benchmarks / temperature reads. So not too big, but
after, of course, if we see if this thing even runs.
okay, guys, this is the moment of truth. Whether the PC turns on, that is the restart button.
Oh, it's got green LEDs on the motherboard?
Apparently. Oh, that's a silent system.
All fans are spinning. Monitor's turning on. Good Windows. It works.
It works, everybody. It works. Okay, guys, it's all finished. We're done. Again, we got a 10-second boot time on that SSD. Dang, it's awesome. Again, silent. You put your head right against this panel.
I honestly
you can't hear it.
There's a TV in the room over there. I can't hear anything but that.
Yeah, it's great.
The temperatures, we installed some software. Temperatures are reading really, really cool for the rate the fans are going at.
Anywhere from 30s to 40s across all components.
Or lower.
Or lower.
We did a quick Windows Experience index test, and it was all 7s or up, except the graphics, because we did not have drivers, so we don't have numbers on that.
So,
with the SSD getting 7.9, which is the highest you can get on a test.
alright, so we really love doing this type of thing, building a computer, filming it, doing all that stuff. We learned a lot. Hope we can do it again. So leave a like if you liked the video, dislike it if you dislike the video, leave a comment, tell us what we're doing, what we need to do better, what we need to do, what we did good. Subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks, guys.